So I just want to welcome everybody here. Before we get started, just to go over some house rules. There are two dedicated Q&A sessions. So one after part one of this webinar, and then a Q&A session after the webinar is, or after Frank's presentation is completed. I'd like to notify everyone that this session is being recorded and will be sent out to everybody that has accepted the invite. So to kick things off, for everyone that doesn't know me, I'm Evan, and I'm the market advisor for global online marketplaces based in the London office. I'm joined here today by Frank Van Den Berg, founder of SME Performance Coaching and marketplace specialist, originally from the Netherlands and now living in the UK. He has previously worked for Unilever and General Motors in international sales and business development roles, including being the first international e-commerce director within GM. 10 years ago, he set up his own company, specializing in international e-commerce, later with a focus on marketplaces. When he sold the company, the firm had offices in the UK, Chicago, Shanghai, Sao Paulo, Amsterdam, and Warsaw, working with over 50 clients day in, day out, providing hands-on support and consultancy. We are incredibly lucky to have Frank here today, who will be assisting myself over the next few months for the first year of this program. Next slide, please, Frank. With the rise of convenience culture globally, consumers are gradually becoming more demanding of their overall shopping experience. Expectations of wider product selections, competitive pricing, and next-day delivery are driving consumers to use marketplaces more frequently. Analyzing these trends, we can see the obvious opportunities this sales channel presents to our clients. And over the last few months, Frank and I have put together a solid go-to online marketplace program with the aim of educating our clients on the opportunities, trends of marketplaces, and informing them of the challenges of using marketplaces, and as an end result, support clients achieve scaled growth internationally by engaging with global marketplaces. So Frank, if you could click again. So the program itself has been developed with these four key questions in mind. Who are the marketplaces? How are we as an organization, Enterprise Ireland, connected to them? Why you, our clients, should consider selling on marketplaces, and how you can get on board. So I've spent the last few weeks and months putting together a comprehensive list of the top marketplaces in the UK, EU, and US, understanding what regions they're active in, what categories of products they sell, and monthly visitors to the site. Using this, we've been able to build a network of key decision makers within the marketplaces. And now our program will be looking at the third and fourth questions. So next slide, please, Frank. So the program structure. We've developed this program to essentially be a full journey for our clients. So all the elements of the supply chain and the routes to market are covered, and the connection between each of these elements are covered and will be understood by each of you by the end of this program. We're going to have a mixture of delivery and learning styles over the next few weeks and months. So we're going to be having 4 marketplace webinars. So today's intro for the clients, and then we'll have a further 3 webinars. So a deep dive for the UK, Europe, and US. And what do I mean by deep dive? We're looking at the local opportunities, looking at the local trends, the challenges that you're going to be facing, speaking about the VAT, the logistics. So everyone has this ability of gaining a deeper understanding of what it means to be active on marketplaces in these regions. We'll also be producing monthly newsletters. And finally, I'd say this is the most exciting part of our program. It's having webinars and workshops which are being led by marketplaces such as Amazon and eBay. And as an end result, we're looking to build capabilities amongst our clients. So next slide, please, Frank. And now I'd like to hand over the mic to Frank, who will be going through his presentation.
Good morning, everybody. Evan, just can you hear me well?
Yep, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, well, I hope that everybody can hear me. Excuse me. Good morning again. My name is Frank Van Den Berg, as Evan has already introduced me. Today, this is really about an introduction to selling on global online marketplaces. This is really focused on beginners. We have programs for more advanced people down the line, but this is really focused on beginners. So this is marketplaces 1.0, so to speak. Now, I hope that there is interesting information coming out of this for everybody. But if there are 3-4 things that I want you to take away from this, I hope it could be this: that marketplaces are representing 35% of all retail growth over the next 3 years. So all the retail growth, including bricks and mortar, 35% of the growth will come from marketplaces roughly. For the first time, customers are rating their experience on marketplaces higher on all aspects of the purchasing, the buying cycle, the customer experience, now on any other retail channel, even higher than bricks and mortars and social media, etc. This is the first time in history that we have the research to show that. And then for sellers like you, for potential sellers like you, marketplaces offer a really unique, ready-made, scalable, and an efficient international ecosystem. And we will, in order to shape the webinar, we have set it up this way. The introduction is what's happening now. Then we're talking about marketplaces, the opportunity. As Evan said, there will be Q&A, there will be a first Q&A session done. We'll then move over to the more meaty part. Well, how do you make this work, winning in marketplaces? And what we will do is we follow the seller journey with the questions that most sellers will have to go through, and we will have some points of attention for each. We also have a Q&A at the end of that. It will take me about 20-25 minutes to go through these slides. And then, of course, there is some additional time for the questions. First of all, I thought it would be useful to talk about a definition for marketplace, just to make sure we're all on the same place. And I will define an online marketplace as a type of e-commerce site where product information is provided by third parties, you and other sellers. Various actions are processed by the marketplace operator. There normally are many sellers and buyers on the marketplace, and they can trade on the marketplace without leaving the platform. Marketplaces usually charge a fixed fee and a percentage fee, and as you undoubtedly know, many marketplaces, all marketplaces, offer additional services. But these services are different. The way marketplaces operate are very different also. There are many dimensions in which they vary. We can't really talk about all of them today, but some of the difference will come to the light. And the first thing really we want to take set up is the benchmark, which for many people all the people in in Western Europe and in the Western world is probably Amazon. I am pretty sure that all of you have bought on Amazon, so this really doesn't need an introduction, but I thought I will put some details in front of you. Amazon is the leading marketplace in the United States, across Europe, and in the countries of the UK, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, as well as Japan, India, and Australasia. So they are dominant in a big part of the world. The United States represents 2/3 of all of their sales. And their objective has been, and still is, to be the Earth's most customer-centric company. And slowly, steadily, they have started to drive and set the benchmarks for the customer expectations, maybe outside China. You have Prime, you have the standard setting in terms of delivery, and there are many other ways of convenience and the customer journey, customer experience that Amazon has really shaped and others now have to follow. In Europe, they launched in 1998. They're currently in 8 countries, but they're selling across Europe. They have an FBA, so that's Fulfillment by Amazon program across all of Europe. It's nice because with one seller registration, you can cover all European sites, which is different from the United States. And some of the key features that not all other webinars or other marketplaces have are brand registry, brand pages, A+ content, FBA in very many different formats, Prime, the buy box, etc. So there are a lot of features in there. Once you know these, they really are a good benchmark to learn about other marketplaces also. I have to say though that although in the West Amazon is the largest, globally, we talk about it a little bit later, they are actually the second largest marketplace after Alibaba. And part of Alibaba is Tmall Global, Alibaba B2B, etc. But total, they are in fact quite a bit bigger than Amazon. But Amazon is the second one, I think. Okay, then let's talk about some of the other marketplaces, and I give you a bit of a selection here. The webinars that we will do this year will be focusing on the UK, Europe, and the United States. But I've listed here the webinars in terms of, the marketplace in terms of traffic to their sites. And the largest are listed here for each of the countries and the continents. And what I've also done is that the largest marketplace in terms of visits on a monthly basis is listed next to the name of the region. So for instance, in Africa, these are all the marketplaces that are there, and these are the leading marketplaces. The Jumia is the marketplace that has the most traffic. Now, these are nice. This is a nice introduction, maybe colorful pictures and logos, important. But now I wanted to put some numbers around the opportunity. And to look at the opportunity, to get an appreciation of the role of marketplaces as a channel for sales, it is useful to put it in the context of total retail. That's the 26 trillion US dollars, of which 21 trillion is actually non-e-retail, so that goes through the brick and mortar shops. But then you look at e-retailing and the split between marketplaces and other retail, e-retail. And you see that that e-retail, that's all e-commerce for B2C customers, makes up 21% of the total of retail, but that this percentage, the marketplace percentage of total e-retail, is actually 2/3. So 2/3 of all e-commerce B2C go through marketplaces. And that's actually quite exciting. But the opportunity is shown even better in the next slide. If on the right-hand column, I'm going to introduce the growth rates. Now, this quickly shows it. E-retail will grow by around 4 to 5% over the next 3 years. Bricks and mortars by 2.5%. Total of e-retail by 9 to 10%. But then look here, marketplaces will make up 11%. Well, they will grow by 11% compared and compare that with the other retail like brand shops, web shops, etc. And that's a massive. So basically, what you can see here is that marketplaces are eating e-commerce, and they've been doing that for a few years already. Okay, this shows a picture, the total of the total, whatever is happening in around the total world, and these sources are all around us. But I wanted to show you that the picture by region is actually different. And I thought it would be useful to make a slide like this for you. In the left bottom corner, you see what I'm trying to show here. It shows obviously the country. Then it shows the size of the e-retail market, which is also represented by the size of the circle. And then it shows the marketplace share of e-retail. So let's stay close to home in the UK. The size of e-retailing is about 250 billion per year, and 40% roughly, these numbers are not exact, but roughly 40% of the whole e-retailing is going through marketplaces. You can see here that after the UK, the United States is next biggest, with Amazon taking 40% of the whole e-retail market already. But the picture wouldn't be complete if I wouldn't show China here also. China in itself is more than half of the world's e-retail market, and marketplaces are absolutely massive in China. Very few people buy through Google Retail or something or similar Chinese equivalent. Now, in the webinar series this year, we will focus on the UK, on Europe and the United States, because they might be the lower hanging fruits. But if there's anybody in the audience that wants to go and talk about China or some of the other countries, do get in touch with Evan or myself, because there are some opportunities there also. Another split I would like to make, this total global picture, another way of showing something else I wanted to show you here is that, of course, the growth opportunities and the development, the state of the market are different per segment. The size of the circle describes roughly how big the market is right now. And then on the vertical and the horizontal axis, you see some of the share of marketplaces and the growth potential. So what you can see here is that edible grocery is foreseen to grow more than any of the other marketplaces segments, I'm sorry, for the next 3 years. It's a bit of a complex slide, and I'm apologizing for that. But the main point is, if you take that away from me, is that the status and the dynamics and the growth opportunities differ per segment that you might be working in, and how you can then look at that. We'll come back to that a little bit later. When I started talking to Evan and one of his colleagues, they said, okay, can we explain why marketplaces are so interesting why have they been growing so quickly? And I just want to show you 2 reasons for that. Why are customers choosing to buy on marketplaces? And this is quite interesting. The shopping behavior has changed and is continuing to evolve. A very well-known retail customer research group called Wunderman Thompson publishes its conclusion of annual research into customer behavior, and it do it each year. Now, the 2022 survey was the first time that showed that marketplaces are more appreciated, provide a better customer experience on all 3 elements of the purchasing, the customer experience, I should say. So previously I thought, okay, where do people get their inspiration from? Maybe from social media, maybe even from search engines. But that worldwide is not the case anymore. Marketplaces provide inspiration and do that better, by what these numbers tell us, than any of the other channels. For search, they prefer Amazon above Google, or marketplaces above Google. And for the purchase decision, that won't surprise you. A lot of people prefer to buy on marketplaces also because it is convenient. Why do people prefer marketplaces? Why is it better for the inspiration, search, and purchase? Well, some of the reasons mentioned include more choice, superior information, better deals. You have a one-click checkout, there's a quick delivery, and the only thing where they don't score up that highly is because you can't try it on. But even you can order 2 or 3 products and you can send the rest back. But that's one of the things where brick and mortar stores definitely should score higher. So that is something from the customer's perspective. But why are sellers choosing to sell on marketplaces? Well, this slide speaks for itself. But if sellers use marketplaces, they tap into an effective ecosystem that effortlessly combines marketing, lead generation, referral systems, checkout, logistics, etc. And with almost what seems to be one click of the button, you can add different countries to it. And it's not really that easy at all, but it seems like, and it is a lot easier than doing it in another way. The other benefit, of course, is that Amazon has its own brand value, its own name, its own trust and credibility. And basically, you piggyback right on those things. On top of that, it is, as we have seen, the fastest growing sales channel in all of retail. Okay, this is the last slide of the first section. We come to the Q&A after this slide. But before we do that, I just want to highlight 2 or 3 very interesting developments. And I've listed them here. There are a lot more. I just want to take the top and the bottom one. In the past, it was pretty much sufficient to start selling. You would just put your product on a marketplace. That was phase 1. The second phase is, okay, you have to build your listings well, you have to do some advertising on the marketplace. That was right, have your brand page. The next one is you start with pay-per-click on the marketplace. But even two or 3 years ago, it became clear, and this comes from China really, that more and more leads now will have to come from off-marketplace marketing. So brand page on Google or your social media pages, they have to support your sales on this channel. And that has some interesting implications for your strategy. We can maybe tap on that in the Q&A later. And then right at the bottom, we already saw that edible groceries are not really sold all that much. They really came up strongly during the pandemic, of course. But what is now happening is that the companies like Amazon, with Morrison in the UK, one of the big supermarket chains, they are now starting with local pick and pack and delivery. So you go to Amazon, you purchase on Amazon, you check out on Amazon, but then you have it home delivered by Morrison's, or you can do the curb collection at your local Morrison stores. And that, I promise you, is going to revolutionize a lot of the opportunities for anybody that sells edible and drinks that are normally sold in the supermarket. It has started in the United States already with a company called Instacart that is doing this phenomenally well. And I think that will continue to ensure that the share of marketplaces of total retail will continue to grow. Okay, Evan, I've come to the end of the part of the opportunity, and I'm just wondering whether there are any Q&As or questions I will try to answer.
There is one. Now we're going to ask people just to write questions in. So we have one question in already. Let me get it there. It's just to discuss the difference between 1P and 3P Amazon seller and Amazon vendor, and what developments you see there.
Okay, yeah, that comes from this slide. And basically, I'm sorry I didn't explain that, I just skipped over it, but many marketplaces buy products, by promising products that they think they will be able to sell from companies, and then they sell it. They buy it in bulk from the company and they sell it under the Amazon name. And so they are both a retailer and a marketplace provider, service provider. So 1P and 3P is what the normal terminology is in that part of the world. So, and there is a clear move that you can see from marketplaces that do both 1P and 3P. They're slowly moving more to 3P. So more and more the dominance of the third-party sellers, they're facilitating the sales of clients rather than becoming a big seller themselves.
Okay, and we have another question here. Is Instacart part of Instagram, or is there any kind of link between Instacart and Instagram, the social media platform?
Good question, and as far as I know, not. No, Instacart is an owned company, and basically it's a mobile tool. It's a mobile website where you actually buy your products, and they have set up the links that Amazon has set up with Morrison. And basically, you click, you go to Instacart, and they have a lot of shoppers that actually run around in the supermarkets and other places and that deliver stuff at home. I mean, during the pandemic, in the first year of the pandemic, they hired 20,000 people to do in supermarket shopping and delivery. So it's as far as I know, not connected at all.
Okay, perfect. That's all the questions that we have in right now. So you can
continue.
Proceed with the second part of our webinar. Yes.
Okay, good. Well, this is the second part of the webinar, and that has a very different character. It is really some of the things that are necessary to have a chance of winning on marketplaces. And we've decided to do that on the basis of questions, 6 questions that we believe every seller, every Irish company, if they want to start selling on the marketplace, should go through. And there are some pointers of each where the answer might be and what you have to consider. The first question is, of course, what do you want to achieve? And there are a lot of objectives people have when they want to start selling on marketplaces, but if it is immediate revenue growth, brand building, or immediate savings, I don't think marketplaces are the best way of achieving that, because it is really a strategic initiative. It will require your attention. It won't be overnight. It very rarely happens overnight. But if you think, well, this is a great long-term sustainable diversification of risk, a growth opportunity for me, and I need to develop my digital sales and marketing capabilities anyway, then I think you're on the right track. Next question probably is which region, and you might have an idea where you might be able to sell your products, but these may be worthwhile to split it in 3 regions. The UK, obviously, it's English speaking. It was part of the European Union. It is not anymore. Brexit has complicated matters a little bit. We have Europe, part of the European Union, so that's a lot easier. However, you still need the warehouse locally, or at least on the continent, most likely at least. And of course, you need your language skills. United States and North America is great because most people know the culture, will speak the language. It's the second largest market, but it's worse than Europe in many ways, because there are 52 separate states that have, in some cases, very different requirements to enter to sell products there. They all have different VAT sales tax solutions. And it is massive. It's not that you're selling it in New York and the next day delivered in San Francisco. That just doesn't work. Now, China and other large or other fast-growing markets are there. They have different cultures and languages that you can't underestimate, but there are solutions to make it happen anyway. And again, if there are people that want to start there are good opportunities through use of some special cross-border channels that I don't really want to go in here. Where we want to focus on that, on the lower hanging fruits, the UK, Europe, and the United States. The next question is probably which marketplaces. And of course, you can go for the general marketplaces like Amazon, eBay. There are many others that you know of. But there are also segment specialists and segment leaders. I'll give you an example. Wayfair is doing better in home and garden products than Amazon in many countries in that segment. Mano Mano for do-it-yourself tools and products in France, for instance, is definitely the leader in the segment and is bigger than Amazon and eBay. So there are questions about which marketplace to go for, and again, they have different ways of doing things. For instance, Mano Mano is a lot easier to deal with from a seller's perspective than Amazon, and Wayfair has a kind of a wholesale model. Maybe just explain what they do. Basically, you tell them what the price is that you want to charge to them, and they will set your final price. So every marketplace is really different. You need to understand that. But the key point of this slide, of course, is that next to general marketplaces, for some countries and for some segments, orders might be better than Amazon. Okay, which marketplaces would you then choose or consider for the different segments? And I've listed the largest marketplaces here for you. Again, the largest meaning any of the sites that get more than 10,000 visitors per month, apart from the fashion one that are only listed there if they get more than 45 million per month. And from the top to the bottom, it shows the things that's hard to read, but you have fashion, you have electronics, homeware, books, art, and then music. Yeah, so let's say you're interested in homeware. Wayfair, Mano Mano, and House are good places to start looking at next to Amazon, of course. But Conforama, Pepperfly are also smaller sites that you could consider. That might suit you better. So this is about which marketplaces. The next question is really which capabilities, and we're coming up to a poll in a minute. But the capabilities that we kind of looking at are strategy, marketing, customer service, logistics, and finance and legal. And before we go to the poll, I just want to give you some details around each of those. Some of the things that we find are mostly could be a challenge if you haven't considered this beforehand. On strategy, a lot of senior decision makers do not have a real sufficient understanding of e-commerce and how to provide ongoing support, what metrics to put in place for their teams. And that's not straightforward. For marketing, the skills you need are market research, customer understanding, how do you set up your brand content, how do you optimize a listing, etc. Those are important things, otherwise it will never fly for you. Customer service is probably the easiest because the customer service is pretty much the same as it is in bricks and mortar. You just have to make sure that emails and telephone calls are picked up. Logistics is another piece of the puzzle, piece of the jigsaw that's hard to get together. You need to do the ongoing order and stock management. You need to make some smart decisions there. How do you do cross-border shipment management? Do you have an effective link between the marketplace and your warehouse, etc.? Those things are never seamless. It's always an issue to consider, and there are always things that go wrong in the first few months. And then on the finance and legal side, you need to know about international payments. You might need international VAT numbers. You need to know about the import duties and documentation. And I tell you one thing, after Brexit, a lot of people stopped exporting because they really did not know how to go around the import duties and documentation requirements that there are between the UK now and European Union. And it has a massive impact, and that is really not a small thing to master. Having said all this, we can now do a little poll to break up the presentation a little bit and see where your concerns might be. And Evan, I'm handing it over to you briefly now.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to launch a poll momentarily. So please let me know if you can see that, Frank.
Yeah, we can see.
So basically, we are asking you to rank your capabilities. There are 5 capabilities you can see: strategy, marketing, customer service, logistics, finance, and legal. And the options that you have to pick are that you have this capability completely covered, that you have it partially covered, that you have it mostly covered, and then that you do not have this capability covered at all. We will be giving you the guts of around 2 minutes just to fill this in. And what we will do is we will take the results away, and as in the follow-up email from this webinar, we will send out the results, and we'll have some kind of conclusions and some findings. And I just like to let you know that your answers are anonymous as well. So I'll give another 30 seconds just for people to finish up. And we'll close the poll in around 10 seconds time. Not to put anybody under any pressure.
Okay.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll take these results and we'll share them on after the webinar is completed.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Evan. So over to me then, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, back control. Yeah, so Evan will share the results with you in the email that you're going to send out. Remember, we were talking about the questions in the seller journey, and we just talked about capabilities. And we're now talking about what products, which products and what prices. And this is really quite important, because what I'm going to talk about here is really got to do with, do you have a clear unique selling point? Do you have unique selling points that are not familiar, that not only strong enough for sales where you do that now, but also in the other places that you're going to start selling? And of course, it starts with some market research. I've just taken a fictitious product. So I'll assume I'm interested in food cream because that's one of the products I'm selling as a company. Excuse me. So one of the things you can do, you just type in the general search term and see what is coming up. And I've taken these, I'm going to take this a little bit further as an example of the things I would normally look at. I would look at the search terms. If I type in different search terms, slightly different, will the same thing come up? So you have a good idea about what's right in it, what are your direct comparators, your competitors, and what might be on the outskirts. And then I start looking at what I think, well, these is similar to what I do. So you have your comparators. You have your comparator set, maybe 5, 6, 3 to 4 comparator products for each of your products to start off with. Or you can look at it per range also. But that's where you start with. Then you start looking at your top competitors, your top comparators there. You start looking at the listing. How good are the listings? What are they talking about? What's the pricing? What's the packaging, etc. And I've taken from Helium, the package that we use to look at this is Helium. And if you have one of these research packages, you can actually see how much they have been selling over the last 30 days and who the listing is and what they can improve on that, which you can learn from also. The other thing you can do is dive further, and you can actually try to identify, and there are software tools available. In this case is Helium 10. You can identify how big the market segment is. So this market segment, these products listed in this market segment under that search term, the 162, I think in this case, about 182 product listings sell around £500,000 per year, per 30 days in the last 30 days. You can find a lot of information, You can see how the time flows, when they have sold most, etc. You can find all of that information. That is really quite useful, of course, because you can find out what are they selling, how much are they selling, at what price, and there's a lot of information, including the number of reviews that they have, which are listed on here also. I need to find that. Well, I can promise you somewhere on this page, you can find out for each of these brands and each of these products, how many reviews they have. And that's quite important, as you can see in the next slide. Once you've done your research, what we then normally do with our clients, or we used to do with our clients, is take the 4 or 5 comparators for each of the product. We take the price, we list the price, we look at the number of reviews, because that is really critically important also, whether they offer Prime, whether they do FBA, and then we look at the different sales numbers for the last 30 days. And then we say, okay, our product is really much better than theirs, or is not better at all, so probably not launch that product then. But let's say you have a product that is much better than what they're offering, or you think we can sell it cheaper. The question then is still, how are we going to get the reviews? Are we going to offer it under Prime and FBA, etc.? So it is important to look at your products and compare the products per se, but look at your total USP. Look at how do you build up the reviews, because I tell you, on Amazon, if you have a lot of reviews, that in itself is a USP in it already. So based on this, you do your customer research, you identify which product range you might be wanting to sell and at what price. And one mistake people make is often that they want to sell the whole range. That's not necessary. The 20/80 rule applies more on Amazon than anywhere else. If you look at your total range, if you were to start listing all of those, it would be 10 to 90, 100%, 90% of your volume will come from 10% of your range. So you really need to start looking at your, what we call hero products, those products for which you have a clear USP and which you can charge something so that you can actually cover the cost of getting listings organized, etc. Talking about the next question, what is the business case? And this is really the last one, that last question that we think everybody should cover. And I want to start this with the question that people always ask me: how much does it cost to sell on Amazon? And I always say I can't really answer that question, because first of all, there are 3 questions that are related. What's the cost? What's the value? And when do you break even? And value and break even, maybe break even is the most important one. First of all, start top right hand corner. Through the market research, you can make a volume estimate and you can help with the price setting. And of course, that drives the value, at least in terms of revenue. Then you have your cost drivers, cost of goods sold. If you have that at 30%, that's great. If you're hitting 50%, you might have a problem. Cost of management is driven by how many countries you're going to go into, the marketplaces you want to tackle, how many SKUs you're launching, like insourcing or outsourcing the rest of the capabilities. And then, importantly, the cost of the channel. So let's say you start selling through Etsy or you start selling through Amazon. The channel fees, the commission that you get charged on each sale that you're making differ. 5% can be Etsy, 22%, and sometimes even higher are for companies like Zalando. Distribution can range from 50% to 25%. And that's partly driven to use FBA. If your product volume is very high, or is it very condensed and heavy? All of these things make a big difference for that, that line item. And then, of course, you need to consider how much channel advertising you want to do and can do. And we recommend that between 10 and 15% of your revenue targets are really spent on advertising, and ideally upfront a little bit. Now, if you add these percentages up together, you're basically looking at 30 to 62% as channel cost. Now that is okay, but if your gross profit is maybe 50%, then you realize that if that is the case, that your cost of the channel is becoming so high that none of your margin is left over. So we have a little bit of about that in a minute, in just a minute on the next one. Just wanted to come over to this point of break even. And obviously, most people understand that before you hit a really steady state sale where you are really competing with your competitors on product characteristics and price, You have to ramp up. You need to get your reviews organized. You need to get your listings organized, etc. And the other thing I wanted to say about the break even is that you really need to be able to support the break even that comes in months 12 to 18, which is not bad in e-commerce land. But if you can't support that for that long a period of time, then the question is this the right channel for you? It is really something that's a strategic choice more than anything else. Okay, Evan said, okay, can we work through an example? And these are really the last 2 slides on this. And the example is this. It's a company, it's actually an Irish company, with a high value beauty healthcare product range. It wants to launch in the UK, 15 SKUs, average order value is £27. Cost of goods sold, they're lucky to making this in-house at 30%. They think they need 1 full-time equivalent split between 3 functions. They're going to supply themselves. Average sales per month, they think of the whole range of products they're going to sell, it might be on a lucky day 1,500, return 3%. And the volume, as I said, is based on the market research that they have done. Now, what you see on the right-hand side are what that translates into. 1,500 per month is this revenues, unit sales per year. This in terms of pounds, cost of goods sold is deducted here. You see the percentages there. And your gross profit too, which is, well, taking your management cost away, is up at 52%. They are okay in the longer term because the cost of the channel is 41%, leave them with 11% margin. Sometimes you see a higher net profit, but I've also seen lower net profits. For instance, retailers who have a much higher cost of goods sold and a smaller margin on here sometimes end up at 0% already here. So it really doesn't work. And retailers are not necessarily the best companies to go onto Amazon, although there are many exceptions to that. Then one slide here where I really wanted to show you how the ramp-up period can work. And this is exactly the same as I showed you before. You recognize the 11% here. But there is a ramp-up period, and it might be between 6 to even 12 months, you know, before you start hitting the stride of the sales potential that you hope to achieve. And here we say, okay, taking 6 to 9 months. And basically, you have some fixed costs, most of it is variable though, and you can see then that this 11% net margin over in a normal year, so to speak, after the ramp up, translates in a only 2% margin, which is basically 0, and the margin of error is at least 5%. So it can also be negative yet in the first year. So the ramp up period is important, and you will need to be able to fund that first year. Fortunately, though, you need 6 months to see whether it's working, and then you can see the positive cash flow starting to come in, and that's what we normally see with successful sellers. Finally, yes, Evan, you asked me, okay, are there any other lessons to learn? And yes, there are a few more lessons to learn. Do not assume that you have a USP. I mentioned that already. The rest of the world obviously is not the same as Ireland. Most Irish companies know that if they want to export, but English and German companies sometimes don't see that. You need to be prepared to invest, and you don't want to hire a whole new team, but you don't want to hire no specialist resources either. You have to get it right, and we can maybe cover a little bit of that later. Okay, then concluding slide is this: that marketplaces are very attractive for companies and for expansion overseas. If you have clear USPs, this could be really exciting for you and your business. In general, starting in the UK, Europe, and the United States, or the United States might provide the lowest hanging fruits. In the other events this year, we will be looking at, as you know, I have explained already on the UK, how is it different from the general Europe, what are the specific elements about Europe, and then the United States. And that then should help you on your journey answering the questions that we have been helping you to phrase through the content that you get from us in the next webinars and the newsletters, etc. Okay, Evan, that were my slides, and we have ample time for Q&As if you have some.
Perfect. There's a question in terms of circulating the Wunder Thompson survey from 2022. Yep. What I'll do is I'll reach out to our market research center to understand, can we send this out?
Yep.
And then there's a second question here, which is, I think, really good question to ask. So regarding logistics capabilities, so how critical are high stock levels and lead times in the fashion industry? And then as a follow-up, so if you are an SME and do not carry large stock, can you realistically market products if you can only deliver on a made-to-order basis, where delivery can be 14 to 21 days after the order?
Okay, let me take that last question first. If you are an SME and you do make-to-order products, then people will understand that, and people will accept longer lead times. The critical thing here is to explain that. If you explain to people that it is made-to-order, they will realize it's only 24-hour delivery. But the key thing is to manage the expectation of when the delivery will be. And of course, you can still sell that. And there are even marketplaces of which most of the sellers might well be having much longer lead time for delivery than just next day. For instance, Etsy is a typical arts and crafts, artisanal type of products. And many of those sellers don't deliver even within a week. So there is definitely those possibilities. You need to tailor the choice of marketplace and how you communicate around all of this to the product that you have in your business process. And then in terms of the fashion industry, there was a question about height, which I did not fully understand.
So it's so the first part of the question was regarding logistics capabilities. How critical are high stock levels and lead times in the fashion industry?
Okay, 2 points on that. It is important to have your stock levels in place. If you can't deliver from stock and you're running out of stock and you don't manage this out of stock situation, well, you don't communicate it, or you don't take a listing down temporarily, for instance, that creates issues, because then your customer experience is shot to pieces and the marketplace might well punish you for that. What you could do, you probably know, but there are very specific logistics companies, if you don't want to use Amazon or anybody there, that logistics companies, third-party logistics companies that focus on fashion. Blackman is one. And there are quite a few of those that can help you with the best strategy, the best approach to some of the questions you were asking. In terms of speed, partly a combination of the previous two answers. People like to buy, also fashion, they like to have it in-house quickly. You know, they might go on holiday 3 days from now, they want it. However, if you have tailor-made products or you can't deliver in 2 days, then you have to be very specific about it and explain them and probably give a reason why. And then I don't think that, well, it doesn't necessarily need to be an issue at all.
So there is another question. So can you share the slides? Yes. And then question about customer data. Having your own e-commerce site allows learning from data and our customers' data. The worry about marketplaces is the customer is no longer ours. Have you seen creative ways other brands use to collate and keep customer data?
The person asking the question is absolutely right. You don't get customer data. You don't get customer insights from these individual customers. And you get a lot of things back though. You get a lot of information back. You can look at customer behavior by looking at some of the Helium-10 and other market research tools that are available. If it is really important for you to have a one-to-one contact with your customer for customer insights, then it is a bit more difficult. I totally agree with you. And it might be that if for your business proposition, this one-to-one business contact is very, very important, then maybe marketplaces, that's the one exception where I think marketplaces might not be the best way for you, because then you can set up your own brand site, your own web shop, and then you can design that whole process in the way that you want that. But for many companies, they say, listen, whether I sell to customer A or B or C, I don't really mind as long as I sell. And it is predominantly a sales channel, of course. That's what I could say on that.
And then we have another question. Would you recommend a multi-pronged approach to marketplaces? For example, sell as a vendor on Amazon, eBay, Wayfair. How would that impact a seller's strategy in terms of division of available business resources if the ramp-up period is 12 to 18 months?
Okay. That's another good question, and I don't really know the immediate answer to that. And it probably depends on the situation. If you know, in the past, the answer would be this. The past, the answer would probably be like, listen, go on Amazon first, click the button that you want to sell in 2, 3, 4 other countries. There's an automatic translation. You can start selling in these countries. Then you optimize it and you take it from there. However, for some companies, off-marketplace activities in a country are critically important. Let's take a country, the Netherlands, just to take a country. It's not a good example, but if in this country you want to go into, and you need, in order to sell on marketplaces, you need to have your social media page organized, you need to have your brand site ready, whatever is necessary to really support your sales, then it might be better to take country by country. And once you have that in place and you have your infrastructure in place in that one country, maybe you're then better off using that infrastructure and the brand awareness to start selling and covering the other sales channels like eBay, etc. Most clients that we work with, most companies that I work with say, listen, no, I just want to start with Amazon or with a very specialized website, and then maybe take one next to it. And once I know how that works, the efficiency is easier. I have a better efficiency to go to another country with that same marketplace than to go to eBay, go to Walmart, etc. But you know, that might be for Europe. That might be the case for Europe. For the United States, you might say, well, let's go for Amazon and Walmart, and you're covering these two things off in one go. As to vendor and seller, I would not. You can do Amazon vendor if you want to do that. Really, the benefit might be that you don't really have to get into B2C marketing, but you can do B2B to Amazon. But Amazon would normally not buy from you unless you're selling yourself B2C. You do that very, very well. And what we see is that if you do it well, Amazon seller is more profitable, and you have a much higher level of control, and you protect your brand better than if you use Amazon vendor.
Okay, perfect. I believe that's all the questions we have, so we can go on to the next slide.
Yeah, there was what we call, yes, we go for it.
So yeah, so just the next steps. So what we're going to do is, along with sending the recording and the slides, we want to send out a survey. So we'd like to understand the difficulties that you as our clients are currently facing, or that you could face when, you know, approaching the topic of marketplaces. And from that information, we want to shape the webinars, the regional focus ones, to focus on answering these topics. So if there's issues with logistics, to get a guest speaker to speak about that. If VAT is an issue, get a guest speaker to speak about that, or warehousing. So we want to be able to give you information to take home, which will then assist you making your decisions in regards to marketplaces. Our next webinar will be a UK focused webinar, which will be the 2nd of August. We will shortly be sending out invites. We will also be announcing our first Amazon webinar, which will also be during the month of August. And then finally, we will be sending out newsletters. So as part of the survey, there will be an option to opt into our newsletter. So it's essentially a way of getting your monthly dose of marketplaces, news, developments, all that sort of stuff. So we'd highly recommend you opt in. So Frank, if you'd go on to the next slide, please. So if you have any more questions, comments on the topics or on the program discussed today, please contact myself. And then if anyone's actually considering launching on the marketplace over the next 60 to 90 days, to also get in touch, and we can have a conversation about it. So I believe that is it, Frank.
It is.
So I just want to thank everybody who's attended for taking time out of your day to attend and to listen to us, and to thank Frank for his wonderful presentation. So thank you all. I will be ending the webinar shortly.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Yep. Can you stop sharing your screen, please, Frank? Thank you. So goodbye, everybody.